So let me bring my guest on now. So welcome to Wisdom School TV, Fred.
Hello, Rebecca. I'm happy to be here.
I'm really happy that you're here. We've been working on this for a while, so it's lovely to have you here on the screen. There's this, let me move these down just a bit, so we'll just get that like there. Okay, that's better. Okay, well, where I'd like to start, if you don't mind, is I love to start my interviews with a bit of backstory. I'm always interested and very curious when I interview my guests as to, how they got to teaching and presenting the material that they're teaching about. So could you tell us a little bit about you, your life, maybe some key times in your life or whatever brought forward this teaching about reality creation and all of this wonderful stuff. I'm going to call it stuff at this point. That's a very technical term, by the way.
Yeah. Well, my research, my teaching is curiosity driven. It was never because I had bad experiences or anything like that. It's very curiosity driven.
Mm-hmm.
I think it all started when I was born. Because I always ask myself, how can I be born and have no recollection of where I'm from or who I am?
Hmm.
And why is everybody around me acting as if they know, but they don't, I asked my parents, I asked at school. I kept asking questions as a child, and nobody could tell me where they're from, who they are. And that made me very curious. So that's a little background. I've also had very strange and funny and high experiences from childhood on. And I noticed that my friends at school don't share those experiences, which made me even more curious. Mm-hmm. So I had to look in books. So I looked for something that could explain my out-of-body experiences, my lucid dreams, my time slips, all of these strange things happening to me. And no book satisfied me. I just couldn't find satisfaction in those books, so I had to write them myself. So all of my book writing comes from not being able to find what I'm looking for, having to create myself what I was looking for.
Well, that's a great place to be writing a book from. How many books have you written now?
About 25, maybe more.
Wow.
I've written more, but not all published. I mean, my computer is full of books that are not published. So 25 are published.
Wow.
In various languages. Mm-hmm.
Wow. So I love that you said, I couldn't find what I was looking for, so I decided to write my own. Well, I'm glad you did, personally. I want to, let's start talking about one of your books. I was actually introduced to you when I was told about your book, Parallel Universes of Self. And I'm just going to hold up a copy here because maybe not all of the people on this broadcast today will be familiar with Fred. Let me get it in the frame. There we go. Parallel Universes of Self. Was actually the first book that I read by Fred. And I want to start off actually by talking, before we get into maybe some deeper conversation here, I want to start talking about your first two, let's see, would you call it chapters? The first chapter in the book is Go for the Real Thing. And the first line of the book is, this book is dedicated to the spirits who believe life is meant to be magical and fun. Well, as they say, you got me on the first line. And I love that there's a juxtaposition between this book being about magic and fun, and then you say, go for the real thing. You want to talk a little bit about that?
About what?
Well, why did you make the first chapter in your book go for the real thing?
Can you help me remember what exactly I wrote in that chapter? It's been 10 years. I wrote that 10 years ago.
Oh, sure. Didn't mean to put you on the spot at all. Okay, let me just tell you what I got from that. What I got from your opening chapter being Go for the Real Thing is that you really believe that magic is part of the real thing. In other words, we are magical beings. We are here to experience magic and
Right,
fun.
right. Go for the real thing. Right. Okay. Um, go for the real thing indicates to go for experience as opposed to reading and writing books. um, to go for actual experience because I've heard a lot of people talk about these things and also write about them
Mm-hmm.
and not experience much.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always out to experience something. I get very dissatisfied if I keep reading about something and never taste it.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's like always reading about a certain good wine, but never actually tasting it. And that's not satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's really satisfying and fulfilling to experience phenomena as described in that book. So that's what I mean by go for the real thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know. Mm-hmm.
Well, and your book then goes on to go into depth about not only the realities of self that one can experience, but also how to begin to experience those realities. So, do you want to let's talk about reality creation because that's what that book is all about. And how would you like to talk about that? Because we could talk about it from several different ways. So, would you like to kind of jump in, and I will ask you
Well,
questions about it?
sure. It's actually it's already covered in the book.
Hmm. But not
uh,
everybody has read the book yet.
okay. Reality creation means to have an intention and then that intention come true.
Hmm.
And there's different ways of going about that. And the way I propose in that book is a different way than the traditional linear way, where you start out here, and then you have to do this, and you have to do this, and then you get this. Okay? That's the traditional way of achieving something or manifesting something. So I want to become a lawyer, so I start here and I study this, go to that school, do this and this and this, and then I can say I'm a lawyer, and so forth. And the second traditional way of manifesting stuff was the religious path, which is through prayer, through requesting from the universe. And both of those ways, the linear way and the prayer way, the universe way, are valid ways of manifesting something. But what I wanted to go into with that book specifically was the third way. And the third way, as I seem to have discovered, is by occupying the identity of a person that is already experiencing that. To simplify, acting as if you're already that. Okay, so if you want to become healthy, you would behave in a way that is congruent to being healthy. If you want to be rich, you'd behave in a way that is congruent to being rich. And according to that book and according to what I teach, you more rapidly attract what you are, not what you want, but what you actually are. Because wanting is a split between the here and now and some future. It's a lack. I want something that I'm separate from. And what I teach is you don't get what you want, you get who you are, what you express, what you behave, what you act out. And that's the basis of the book. So where parallel universes comes into this, parallel universes or multiple world theories from physics, it says there are many different versions of us. So I took this theory and I said, let's use that for self-improvement, because we all know there are different versions of us anyway. in daily life. The version I am with my spouse, the version I am with a child, the version I am with a superior, the version I am at home, in public, in this interview, and so forth. So the idea is that you attract into your life according to the energy that you are, and you can choose a parallel universe version of yourself, step into it, look from the eyes of that person, and behave like it, and also accumulate props of that role, like an actor, like acting a role, and you will attract new thoughts, new ideas, new behaviors, new so-called coincidences, new people into your life in accordance with what you are.
One of the things that really drew me to reading your book, because at the time I started reading it, and also I happened to teach from it for about 6 months along with some other books.
You told me that.
Yeah,
By the way, how did that work?
it worked really well. What I did was I weaved in several of your concepts, things like you can't have what you want, you can have what you are. The other one that we worked a lot with was happiness is the cause, not the effect. And we worked those along with some other things about how to really begin to let go of our grip on what reality really is and who we really are. And that's one of the things that I found very refreshing about your book was that it comes from that place that I'm going to use these words. We're fluid. Reality is fluid. If there are parallel realities happening at the same time, then the more that we can, let's say, this is the way I talk about it, let go of our grip, that this is the only way, this 5 sense reality is the only way, then the more that we can begin to morph between the realities. What would you have anything to add about that?
No, I fully agree.
Mm-hmm.
I really agree. I've experienced, as I write in my book, I've experienced it time and time again.
Mm-hmm.
How rapidly things can change if I change, rather than waiting for the external world to change.
Yeah.
I was in my 20s. I always used to have difficulty with my income, and I already knew it back then. If I just changed my attitude a little, my body posture, and my outlook, money would come in, and it always did. And then, I got lazy again, and kind of, my attitude went back down, and my money went back down. So every time that happened, I woke up again, used it as a wake-up call, and I experimented throughout my 20s in this way. All I had to do was remember the times I made good money and behave like that again, get that energy back, and it worked every time. And I've experimented extensively with that fluidity. I've healed pains with it, changed my looks with it, changed my voice, and so forth. Yeah.
So you've been talking about behavior, and I believe behavior is a key. But let's look a little deeper. I know that the 5 levels of reality creation you talk about, the first level, or level 5 or level 1, whichever way you're coming from, is really our identity. And then right above that is our core beliefs. And as you and I both know, that is deeper than our behavior. In other words, I would like to suggest that we change our core beliefs, our behavior changes. So I know you coach people, and when you're coaching people in this area, what are some of the common, let's say, stumbling blocks or identities that you work with to assist them to let go of, to move beyond, to shift?
Well, just one thing. Behavior is linked to identity. So you put on a new identity, and from that follows certain type of behavior which you can practice and mimic. Okay, I wouldn't separate it that strongly. In any case, what are the common stumbling blocks? Hmm. Well, in this technique, in this specific way of seeing things, it's the unwillingness to act
Hmm.
and to be playful, to be different,
Hmm.
um, which would be a stumbling block to using that technique, to changing one's identity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Lack of confidence, lack of authority,
Mm-hmm.
lack of self-confidence. You see, I invented all of these techniques out of nothing. It's because I'm confident. And because I'm confident, I invented them in such a way that they work for me. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes, I do.
So it's all lack of confidence. If many of my students had more courage,
Hmm.
more heart, and
Hmm.
more courage, they could make almost anything work.
Hmm.
You know, they wouldn't even have to use my techniques. So the main stumbling block, it really is lack of confidence. Um, yeah, discouragement
Mm-hmm. Let's talk.
because of all yeah.
No, no. That. Let's talk about the heart for a moment. One of the things that I believe fuels our ability to shift our reality, to live more in the fullness of who we are. That's going to be my words for it. Is our heart. And courage, is another word for heart. That's where courage comes from. So if you have a client who is, let's say, doesn't have that self-confidence, doesn't have that courage, and yet you know the possibilities of where they could go, how would you work with someone like that? Because I'm just thinking maybe some of the people that are listening to this broadcast are going, wow, I don't know if I have that self-confidence or not, kind of thing. So what would be a technique maybe that you might suggest to them?
Well, in general, I don't use the technique, your favorite technique, the parallel universe technique, with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I it's a certain level of thinking, and it's pretty high. And if I see that somebody might not have that confidence to believe they can radically change within a day, um, I use other techniques, things closer to home, things that are in the proximity of what a person can handle and imagine.
Mm-hmm.
If you give somebody more than they can handle or imagine, you overwhelm them.
Mm-hmm.
So we would, for example, go back to the linear method, the step by step by step method, right? Um, Lack of courage is, in general, um, what I often tell people, was lack of courage, is that courage is not the absence of fear, it's taking action in the face of fear. So I tell them these little, like koans, these little things that get them thinking, okay? Um, there's a lot of things you can do, but one of the goals of coaching, obviously, would become more courageous, right? To become more mischievous and courageous. Um, Mischievous in the sense of, being playful, being childlike. And coming from the heart means to have enough self-respect and self-value to to live a life that is fulfilling.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
don't know if it answers your question, but
No.
that's
Mm-hmm. I think it's
yeah, that's
important to talk about that you can take someone who may, look at parallel universes and kind of back up a few steps and go, whoa, I'm not sure I'm ready to do that. And yet I would really like to build my self-confidence and be able to be more playful in my life, be more mischievous, be more creative about who I am, rather than living in such a fixed role and a fixed reality. I come back to that word, but that's something that really I find that I think we're working with right now on the planet is we're in this huge, big, universal shift of consciousness between a lot of the ways that we fixed our realities and who we really are. Do you have anything to say about that?
Other than agreement?
Do you have anything to add?
Not really. No, no. It's about releasing the fixedness. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
There's many ways to go about that.
Mm-hmm.
It's about becoming more fluid, as you said,
Mm-hmm.
rather than fixed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in order to become more fluid, you should realize that the benefits of being fixed. The benefits of being fixed is being safe and stable, right? And once you realize that there's benefits, you no longer resist being fixed, and you can be both polarities. You can be fixed and then can be fluid again. And fixed and then fluid again. But if you want to change your reality, you can't keep one fixation. You have to be able to shift your outlook, your consciousness, your identity somewhat.
Mm-hmm.
And then, if you want to stabilize a new reality, you have to become somewhat fixed with that, right? So you make a decision for a new reality, and then it's good to become fixed. But that's conscious fixation as opposed to rigid, indoctrinated fixation.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes, and yeah, that was I liked that. That really articulates something that I'm aware of is that it's the unconscious fixation that I believe that more and more people are becoming aware of or resistant. One of the other things that I know you teach a lot is also meditation. Would you like to talk about how meditation fits into all of this?
With meditation, there's nothing to talk about. That's the whole point of meditation. How does meditation fit into all of this? Meditation is awareness. So maybe a better word than meditation would be awareness, because people associate meditation with eyes closed usually, and that's not the only way to meditate. You can also meditate walking and with eyes open. Meditation is about more and more and more awareness of things. Awareness is a key. I'd say the two keys to life and to success and to health and to everything else are awareness and love. Okay? Awareness and love. And awareness means seeing, hearing, thinking, perceiving, feeling things you have not felt, heard, perceived, thought before. That's how your awareness increases and increases and increases. And the purpose of meditation is to become silent and perceptive enough to even become more aware of things. Because if you're constantly loud in your head and chaotic and reactive, you're not going to learn much. You're not going to become aware of much. Mm-hmm. So that's the reason, in my view, the reason for meditation and one of my favorite words, poise, and calming down, right? So the calm, the silence, and the awareness that arises in that silence is more precious than gold.
Well, I would agree with you. Absolutely. Now I'm agreeing with you. It is. And again, do you find this to be a challenge for your clients? Do you find it, or do you find that people are readily, like, oh, I can't wait to do this? Or do you find that, people have challenges with meditation, with being silent, with being quiet?
Yeah, many do. That's the cause of their whole issue. Mm-hmm. They can't sit still for 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. So in that case, there's two ways to go. It depends on how you explain meditation, how you sell it, right? If you sell it like many do and say, well, you have to stop your thinking, that's not a way to sell meditation, because it's quite impossible to stop one's thinking. So one way is you sell it differently, which I do in my coachings. And the other thing you can do is you don't use meditation, you use other things that result in similar states. So if somebody doesn't like to meditate, we'll go into acting, right? Because acting is another way to apply this specific technique, the parallel universe technique, and they'll never have to meditate. So meditating is not an absolute must in order to succeed in life or in order to live a fulfilled life. But if you don't meditate, maybe you pray. And if you neither meditate nor pray, maybe you do sports, which has a similar effect.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't pray, meditate, or do sports, maybe you like to read books or paint, which has a similar effect. Okay, if you don't paint, do sports, or meditate, I can.
In other words, whatever works.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Whatever gets us started into expanding our consciousness, expanding our reality outside of the small awareness that we tend to stay in day out. Fred, do you feel like this is a unique time that we're going through? I mean, there's been so much out there about the energy shifts of 2012, and now we're in 2013, 3 months into it, just about. Do you feel like this is a unique time? Do you find this in working with people, in the work that you do? And if so, how do you find this unique or not? What would, if unique is not the word?
No. Well, actually, I don't.
Okay.
I think the world and Earth could be much, 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 much higher. It doesn't have to be, but I've been to certain realms and places, and in comparison, I don't think what's happening here is that high or that special, and that we're going through such radical change. I did not believe in, as I wrote on that blog in 2011, I did not believe that 2012 was a special significance. I do believe there's a very, very gradual and slow and incremental shift in consciousness, but that has nothing to do with a certain specific date. It's been going on since thousands of years. I believe that since thousands of years, we've slowly been going up, and will continue to go up. And if we continue at this pace, we'll be enlightened as a humanity in about 10,000 years. So that's how I see it. I think we've been going through quickened change since 200 years, and a little more quickened change with the internet revolution. So I don't only see this this new agey thing of 2012, but I see the whole thing, the entire history of the Earth and humanity, and that's just how I see it.
So 10,000 more years, huh? You don't think we can do anything to
accelerate that? Well, I don't. Another thing I teach, which some people find odd, is I'm not sure this planet is meant to be perfect. Because if it were, then we wouldn't have to incarnate here and come down here to learn our lessons. Mm-hmm. Because I think we come from perfect. So if we come from perfect, and I also think we're going back to perfect someday, there would be no point in having this be perfect.
Yeah, no, I don't see it as perfect. When I talk about the shifts that are going on, it's not toward perfection so much, but it is about raising, let's say, levels of consciousness this is going to be my view, since I work with the concept of heaven on earth. it's not about heaven being a perfect place. It is about, though, those of us who resonate with that having more compassion on the planet, having more respect one to another, having more, loving. You're shaking
I
your
think
head.
it's possible. Yeah, I think it's possible to have heaven on earth. I don't want to discourage you from bringing it to earth. I think that's possible. It's a possibility, But as long as it's not that way, it's just a good training school.
Well, to me, heaven is really a personal experience that everyone has inside themselves. So it's not to me, it's not about, all of a sudden it descends on us. It's more like each individual as they awaken to the heaven within. And to me, that is a raise of consciousness.
Right, I can confirm that because most of my life is pretty good.
Yeah.
So I can be in heaven while the rest of the planet isn't.
Yeah, exactly. But
And I can do my best to support others to join me, but I can't force them.
no,